The courtroom was silent, so silent that even the sound of breathing felt loud. Cameras were not allowed inside, but everyone knew the world was watching. News reporters waited outside, fans stood behind barricades, and social media was already filled with rumors and questions. But inside the courtroom, there was only stillness, tension, and Keanu Reeves sitting alone at the defense table. He did not look broken. He did not look angry. He simply looked tired. The kind of tired that does not come from lack of sleep, but from carrying a weight that has been on the heart for too long. The case was serious. Someone had accused Keanu of something that struck at the core of who he was. A former associate claimed he had betrayed him in business, taken advantage of him, and caused him great financial loss. The accusation was cold and public, and even though Keanu knew the truth, he understood something painful. Truth does not always speak louder than noise. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The air felt heavy, as if the room itself understood the importance of what was happening. Keanu's lawyer spoke quietly beside him. "Just stay calm. We know the truth." Keanu nodded slowly. Calm had always been his strength, but today, calm felt harder. Then, the courtroom doors opened again. Everyone turned, and Sandra Bullock walked in. She did not make a dramatic entrance. She did not try to draw attention. She simply walked, with quiet steps, toward the bench behind Keanu. Her expression was gentle, but strong. Her presence filled the room with something unspoken. She sat directly behind him. Keanu did not turn around. He did not need to. He felt her presence the way we feel sunlight even with our eyes closed. The world outside did not know why she was there. Some thought they had been in love once. Some thought they had drifted apart. Some thought they were just friends. But the truth was deeper than labels. They were souls who had walked through pain and healing, sometimes together, sometimes far apart, but always connected by something quiet and real. The prosecutor began speaking, presenting accusations like sharp edges. The words were heavy. They were designed to damage, to doubt, to break trust. Every sentence felt like a stone thrown. Keanu listened silently, hands folded. He did not defend himself yet. He did not fight. He simply breathed. But Sandra's eyes did not leave him. Not once. Her presence was steady, like an anchor in a storm. When one particular accusation cut deeper than the others, Keanu's shoulders tensed just slightly, and in that exact moment, Sandra gently placed her hand on his back, not pushing, not grabbing, just resting, warm, sure, quiet. The courtroom did not notice. But Keanu did. The touch said, "You are not alone. You are seen. You are believed." And that small, quiet moment changed everything inside him. The world outside would soon know something powerful. Some people show up when the world turns away. The prosecutor continued speaking with confidence, presenting documents, statements, and witnesses who claimed to know pieces of the story. Each sentence was shaped to make Keanu appear careless, selfish, or unkind. None of it matched the man Sandra knew. None of it matched the man the world believed him to be. But in a courtroom, truth does not walk in wearing a bright sign. Truth has to be proven, piece by piece, like building a bridge across water. Keanu sat still, listening. His silence was not weakness. It was patience. He had learned long ago that reacting too quickly often destroys clarity. So he breathed, steady, controlled. But even patience has limits. And the accusations touched memories that were old wounds. The associate accusing him had once been his friend, someone he had tried to help, someone who had been struggling, someone he trusted, and that made the betrayal sharper. Sandra watched him carefully. She knew his quiet better than most. She knew the difference between his calm and his hurt. She saw the moment his hands clenched gently, the slightest motion, a signal that something inside him had been struck. She leaned forward and whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "Truth is still truth, even when they try to bury it." Her voice was soft, but the words landed with weight. Keanu didn't respond with words, but something in his posture shifted. His shoulders lowered. His breath deepened. He was not alone. Sometimes strength comes from silence, sometimes from presence, sometimes from the simple knowledge that someone believes you. The judge called for a short break. Chairs moved, papers shuffled, The courtroom buzzed again with whispers. Some people glanced at Sandra, curious. Others already typed messages into their phones, guessing what her presence meant. Keanu stood. Slowly. He expected to walk to the hallway alone, but Sandra stood with him. She did not hesitate. She did not ask for permission. She simply stepped beside him, shoulder to shoulder. When they reached a quiet corner near the window, she turned to him. Her eyes were steady. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. Keanu looked away for a moment, as if searching for the right words in the air between them. "I didn't want this," he said. "Not the fight, not the attention, not the pain." She nodded. "I know. I tried to help him," he continued, voice soft but weighted. "I didn't expect him to use that help against me." Sandra's expression softened. "Not with pity, with understanding. Kindness is not weakness," she said. "But the world sometimes treats it like it is." Keanu looked back at her. In her eyes, he saw no doubt, no hesitation, only truth. "Thank you for being here," he said. She smiled, small and warm. "You would have done the same," and he would have. They walked back into the courtroom together as the break ended. The whispers grew louder. Cameras waited outside. Journalists speculated. But none of that mattered, because now the world had seen something unmistakable. When Keanu Reeves stood accused, Sandra Bullock stood with him. Not in front of him, not behind him, but beside him. When the courtroom resumed, the air felt heavier. The prosecutor called the first witness, a man who once worked closely with Keanu and the accuser. He spoke with confidence, telling the court that Keanu had made promises he did not keep, that he had used his influence to gain advantage, that he had walked away when things became difficult. Each sentence was shaped like a blade. But something was wrong. His words sounded practiced, smooth to smooth. Sandra noticed it immediately. She had been in Hollywood long enough to know when someone was performing. His gestures, his pauses, even his sighs felt rehearsed. Keanu listened quietly. But his eyes had changed. They were not cold. They were not angry. They were simply knowing. He knew this man. He knew what loyalty once looked like, and he recognized what betrayal looked like now. The witness finished speaking. The prosecutor looked satisfied. Some people in the courtroom nodded, believing the story they had just heard. But truth has a different kind of power. When Keanu's lawyer stood up for cross-examination, the room shifted. "You say Keanu walked away when things became difficult," the lawyer began. "But is it true you were given financial support by him during that time?" The witness stiffened. "That is not relevant," he said. "It is relevant," the lawyer responded, calm and steady. "Keanu loaned you money. Money he never asked you to repay. Correct?" The witness looked uncomfortable. He didn't ask. "But that does not mean there were no expectations." Sandra leaned forward slightly, watching every twitch of his expression. The lawyer continued. "Did Keanu ever threaten you, pressure you, demand anything from you in return?" Silence. The witness shifted in his seat. "No." "Did he support you when your business was failing?" "Yes." "Did he help you when your family was struggling?" "Yes." "So the man you are accusing today once helped you without asking for anything back?" The courtroom went silent. The witness's jaw tightened. Anger rose on his face, not grief, not hurt. Anger rooted in pride. "He made me feel small," the witness snapped. "He was calm, quiet, humble, and everyone loved him. Do you know what it feels like to stand next to someone the world treats like a saint, while you feel like nothing?" The room froze, because there it was. The truth beneath the accusation. Jealousy. Sandra felt her heart ache, not for the witness, but for the wound inside him he never healed. Keanu did not react. He did not defend himself. He simply watched, calmly, as the man revealed himself piece by piece. The lawyer continued gently, not attacking, just guiding. "So this accusation is not about money or betrayal. It is about comparison, about the way you felt standing next to him." The witness looked away, eyes wet with shame and rage. "He took everything, without taking anything," he whispered. And that was the moment. The judge leaned forward. The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath, because the truth was no longer hidden. The case was no longer about business. It was about the pain of standing beside someone who shines quietly, someone who does not try to outshine anyone, someone who simply lives with kindness. And sometimes, that is the hardest thing to accept. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment. Sandra stayed steady behind him, a quiet pillar of strength. The world outside would soon learn that kindness can wound those who have not learned how to love themselves. The air in the courtroom felt different now. Something had shifted. The truth was not fully spoken, but it had been felt. And sometimes, feelings say more than words ever can. The witness stepped down, avoiding everyone's eyes. The judge called for the next part of the case. Documents, emails, contracts, evidence began to show its own quiet story. Keanu's lawyer placed several folders on the table. The papers were simple, clear, not dramatic, but they showed something important. Keanu had tried to help. He had tried to support. He had never taken advantage. The accuser sat stiffly across the room. His face was tight, his jaw clenched, his eyes restless. He looked less like someone seeking justice, and more like someone fighting a battle inside his own heart. As the lawyer spoke, Sandra watched the accuser carefully, not with anger, not with judgment, but with something softer. She saw pain in him, not the kind that comes from being wronged, but the kind that comes from not feeling enough, from living in the shadow of someone who does not try to cast a shadow. And that kind of pain can turn into resentment if it is never healed. The prosecutor tried to recover ground, but the foundation beneath the accusation was already cracking. The judge listened intently, his expression steady but thoughtful. Even he felt the shift. Then, something unexpected happened. The lawyer asked for a character testimony. Sandra did not expect her name to be called. But when the lawyer said, "We would like to call Miss Sandra Bullock to the stand," the courtroom turned. Whispers spread like wind through grass. Sandra stood slowly. She did not look nervous. She did not look rehearsed. She walked with the same quiet certainty she had when she entered. She sat in the witness chair. Her hands rested in her lap. Her breathing was steady. The lawyer asked gently, "How long have you known Keanu Reeves?" "Many years," she replied. Her voice was soft but clear. "Long enough to understand who he is when no one is watching." The prosecutor leaned forward. "And who is that, exactly?" Sandra looked at Keanu for a brief moment. There was no dramatic pause, no trembling, just truth. He is someone who gives without asking for anything back. Someone who listens more than he speaks. Someone who knows pain, but chooses kindness anyway. The courtroom was silent. She continued, voice steady, soft, real. He does not fight for attention. He does not try to be admired. He simply tries to do what is right, even when no one sees it. Especially when no one sees it. The prosecutor tried to interrupt. "Miss Bullock, your relationship with Mr. Reeves is..." Sandra did not raise her voice. She simply spoke over him, calmly, respectfully, but firmly. "My relationship with him does not change the truth." The room froze. Because truth spoken without force is sometimes the most powerful. She looked at the judge. He would never knowingly hurt someone. Not with his words, not with his choices, not with his actions. He carries enough pain of his own. He would never give that to someone else. The judge watched her, listened, weighed every word. Keanu felt something warm in his chest. Not pride, not relief. Gratitude. The kind that lives deep. The world outside would soon hear what she said. But the moment it mattered most, she said it here. In front of everyone. Standing with him. When Sandra stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom was silent. Not just quiet, silent in a way that felt heavy, thoughtful, awake. Her words did something no document or argument could do. They reminded everyone in the room that a human heart was involved. The judge called for a recess. Lawyers gathered their papers. Officers moved quietly. People in the audience whispered softly, still processing what they had seen. Keanu remained seated for a moment. He stared at the empty witness chair where Sandra had been. His eyes were not teary, but they held a depth that spoke of emotion too layered for display. Sandra returned to her seat behind him. She didn't ask if he was okay. She didn't search his face. She just sat close enough for him to feel her presence. Finally, Keanu turned slightly. He spoke so softly only she could hear. "Thank you." She didn't smile. She didn't shrug. She simply nodded and said, "You have always stood for others." Today, someone needed to stand for you. The simplicity of that hit harder than any dramatic declaration could. They sat quietly through the break, outside the courtroom walls. Something else was happening. News had already begun to spread. Not about the accusations, not about the trial, but about the moment Sandra stood behind Keanu. Photos had been taken when she entered. Short clips of her placing her hand gently on his back were now being replayed everywhere. The internet didn't mock. It didn't gossip. It didn't twist. Instead, the world reacted with something rare: respect. People wrote comments like, "This is what loyalty looks like. Some friendships are more real than love stories. This is how you show up for someone." The story had changed. Not because of public relations, not because of statements, not because of celebrity image management, but because kindness and loyalty are louder than rumors when they are real. Back inside the courtroom, the accuser watched the shift. His expression was no longer confident. It was unsettled. Something inside him had cracked. Jealousy was no longer enough to protect him from the truth he avoided. He stood and asked to speak. The judge allowed it. The accuser walked slowly to the witness stand. His hands shook not from fear of punishment, but from the weight of what he carried inside for so long. He began with a shaky breath. "I lied." The words didn't shout. They didn't break. They just fell. Sandra closed her eyes for a moment. Keanu lowered his head slightly, not in victory, but in quiet sadness. The accuser continued, "He helped me. He supported me, and I couldn't accept it. Because I felt less. I felt small. And instead of fixing what was broken in me, I blamed him." No one moved. I wanted him to feel the pain I felt. But he didn't cause that pain. I caused it myself. The silence was thick. Raw. Human. The judge nodded slowly, understanding more than judgment could ever convey. Sandra placed her hand lightly over Keanu's. Again. Not to celebrate, but to steady him, because even truth hurts, and forgiveness is its own kind of storm. The courtroom felt different now. Not tense, not angry, just quiet in a way that felt like everyone was learning to breathe again. The judge took a moment before speaking. He did not need to raise his voice. The truth had already settled into the room. The charges were dropped. There was no celebration, no applause, no dramatic sighs, just a soft, emotional stillness, like a wound that had finally been acknowledged, like a weight slowly being lifted. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment, not because he was relieved, but because he was tired, deeply tired. Carrying pain and misunderstanding can feel heavier than any physical burden. And now, he could finally put some of it down. Sandra stayed close. She didn't touch him this time. She didn't need to. The quiet between them was enough. People began to leave the courtroom, some respectfully, some thoughtfully. Even the accuser stayed for a moment, standing alone at the front. He looked smaller now, not physically, but emotionally, like someone who had been carrying a story too heavy for too long. Keanu approached him slowly. Sandra watched, but she did not move. This moment belonged to him. The accuser did not look up right away. When he finally did, his eyes were red, tired, ashamed. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice cracked. "I didn't know how to handle my own pain." Keanu nodded gently. "I know. You should hate me," the man whispered. Keanu shook his head. "Hate doesn't heal anything. It only keeps us in the same place." The accuser looked like he might break again, but this time, not from rage, from release. "Thank you," he said. Keanu simply placed a hand on his shoulder, not to excuse, not to erase, but to accept what had happened and let it go. He walked back to Sandra. She was watching him with soft eyes, eyes that understood things without needing words. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. He nodded slowly. "I think so." They left the courthouse together. Cameras flashed as soon as they stepped outside. Reporters shouted questions. People called their names. But something had shifted. No one shouted accusations. No one tried to create a scandal. Instead, people watched the way Sandra walked beside him. Not in front, not behind. Beside him, steady, simple, real. The world saw something they rarely get to see in public life: loyalty without condition, friendship without performance, love that does not need labels. They reached the car. Before getting in, Keanu stopped. The sky was gray, but gentle. A breeze moved softly past them. The day did not feel heavy anymore. He looked at Sandra. "You didn't have to show up today," he said. She smiled, a small, warm smile that reached her eyes. "I know," she replied, "but you would have shown up for me." He breathed out slowly, a quiet, peaceful breath. "Yeah," he said, "I would have." They got into the car. The door closed. The world stayed outside. Inside, there was peace, not loud peace, not perfect peace, but real peace, the kind that comes when someone stands with you when the world turns away.